Hello, I'm Craig Russell. I'm the author of Hyde, amongst other things, and I am absolutely delighted and honoured to be taking part in Robert Louis Stevenson Day. Stevenson is a titan in the literary world internationally, uh, and has had such a huge impact and influence on just about every Scottish author, I would say, as well as authors and readers around the world. So it is a real honour to be part of this celebration of his legacy. So, how Stevenson influenced me as an author? Obviously, just growing up reading Stevenson to start with as a child, reading his works for younger readers such as Treasure Island and Kidnapped had a massive effect on me. Um, I remember the impact of some of the scenes that I read, because he could write with such vividity. But also, Stevenson was really quite literally part of my landscape. Where I grew up, very nearby was the inn that inspired the Admiral Benbow. Where I'm sitting now, within a very short walk, I would find myself at Ben Gunn's cave. Obviously, Stevenson was a very sickly adolescent and young man, and he was sent to this part of the world to uh, enjoy the fresher air and take the waters, as they did back then. And on one of his constitutionals, he came across this cave, which inspired Ben Gunn's cave in Treasure Island, and also nearby there is a centuries-old house which inspired the House of Shaws, for example. Added to all of this is the fact that Edinburgh was effectively uh, my hometown, if you like, and you know, being surrounded by the same architecture as Stevenson, um, and seeing in Edinburgh the mythologies, the folklores, the histories, um, and the divided identity of the city has had a huge effect on me, and is something that I share with Stevenson. And it was this, this exploration. Obviously he was inspired by his own literary forebears, like the Confessions of a Justified Sinner, but obviously the folkloric, semi-folkloric history of Deacon Brodie played a huge part in his formation of the character, the dual character of Jekyll and Hyde, and that, of course, is a fascination that brought me to revisit that work. So, how did Stevenson lead me to Hyde? Obviously, the novella, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is part of the classic canon. But the strange thing is that it is much better known than it is read, if you know what I mean. The Everyone knows, everyone understands the concept of Jekyll and Hyde, and many people have seen cinematic representations of it, but surprisingly few people have actually read the novella. And of course, being interested in Stevenson and the background to his writing, um, the inspirations greatly interested me, and it brought me to uh, William Ernest Henley, the poet and critic, who was a very good friend of of Stevenson. And Henley, he was a big burly, jovial, red-bearded, red-haired character, a real larger-than-life character, who had suffered terribly from tuberculosis as a child, and had his one of his legs amputated below the knee, which didn't disturb him at all. You know, he remained this larger than life character, and you know, very often got about with the aid of a crutch, and was, Stevenson admitted it, was the inspiration for Long John Silver. So that led me to wonder, well, if Stevenson had a friend who inspired Long John Silver, maybe he had friends who inspired other characters, and specifically that he had a friend who inspired him to create the character of Hyde, or Jekyll and Hyde. So what my book is not so much, in fact, it's definitely not a retelling of the Jekyll and Hyde story. What it is what they would call in the Marvel universe an origin story, if you like, where I explore the possibility that there was someone who inspired Stevenson to create this character. In my book, Hyde is a good man. He is a thoroughly good man, and he tries to do the right thing. He has a very, very deeply embodied sense of morality. However, he has an appearance that is quite disturbing to some people. He is physically very imposing, not tall, but very imposing, and provokes a certain kind of reaction amongst some people. And strangely enough, going back to William Ernest Henley, that was, and I believe he may have had some part in influencing Stevenson with Jekyll and Hyde. Some people found his delicacy and intellectualism completely at odds with his physical appearance, which was again quite intimidating. So there is more than a touch of that with my character Hyde. In my story, Hyde is the superintendent of detective officers in the City of Edinburgh Police. But he has a secret that he keeps from everyone except his physician, because it would debar him from his post. And that is, he has these epileptic type fugue states where he loses time and he cannot account for where he has been or what he has done, which obviously has a relevance going back to the original source material. So what my Hyde explores, his own psychology to try to solve a murder. Incidentally, he finds himself at the scene of a murder inexplicably, and in his own mind is a suspect in the very murder he is investigating. So my Hyde is exploring, he's navigating a world which is Edinburgh at the height of the British Empire. And like Stevenson, I am exploring the duality of Edinburgh as a city and of Scottish identity at that time, where there was still a sense of Celtic identity, but there was also the sense of being a partner in this enterprise of the British Empire and all that entailed. Um, but layered, obviously, on top of that is the whole thing about Edinburgh, the split identity. You know, rich, poor, new town, old town, Georgian, medieval. Uh, and obviously a subtext of Celtic mythology, um, because the idea of the other world and of uh, an other identity plays through it all. So really, it was great fun to explore the same themes that uh, Stevenson did, but in a different way. Um, and just reacquainting myself with uh, the original work as well was just a sheer joy. So, as I say, it is a huge honour and privilege to take part in this day of celebration of Stevenson's life and work.